Thanks for joining us, everyone. This week, we're lucky to have Tony Hallen, who's going to be presenting to us on the first 90 days. And we're looking forward to hearing what he has to say. And we'll have questions if you want to ask during the meeting. We've got a small group tonight, but we'll also have time set aside for questions after the meeting or after the presentation. Go ahead, Tony.
So yes, like Renee said, my name is Tony Hallen, and I'm going to talk about a book that I've been reading. Actually, in full disclosure, I'm just about done with it. I'm on the last chapter, probably a few pages left, called The First 90 Days. Can everybody see the PowerPoint I have up?
Yes.
Okay. I'm getting used to my new dual monitors. So anyways, this book was I guess recommended to me by someone I networked with a couple of months ago. And it was a very inexpensive buy. I think I got off Amazon for 15 bucks. And it outlines what you is recommended by the author of what you focus on in your first 90 days of a job. Now it's geared, yes, primarily towards executives and people going into the management role, but there's a lot of content in here that anybody could use. And it's kind of broken down as 10 chapters, and each chapter has, and I'll get into that here in a second, but so my first thing is, congratulations, you've been hired. So now what? I would suggest starting to read this book right after you sign the agreement and before you even start. It's not a long read. It's a couple hundred pages. It's very easy, but it's proven strategies for getting up to speed faster and smarter. Now, this is a book that I wish I would have had, or I would have been able to read when I first started at General Mills. Because when I got into the introduction, to be honest, it was like, wow. And in the first chapter, it's like, wow, I kind of found out right away where I derailed in a lot of ways. It kind of highlighted, it was a very sobering first, I would say the introduction in the first two chapters. It was a very sobering and eye-opening, first part. So it kind of highlighted where I kind of went wrong. It will also give you insight maybe on what your boss, if someone is over you, where you probably missed the ball or where they missed the ball, because nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes, and we all have our blind spots. And this book kind of points it out. And like I said, it's written primarily towards executives. The author is Michael D. Watkins. I put a picture up on there for you so you can take down, what it looks like. So when you go on Amazon or wherever you want to go to buy it or purchase it, that kind of gives you an idea what it looks like and who it's written by. I think there has been a couple of a couple of editions, I should say. And I think the latest one is 2013. I think there's two editions, and I think this one is the most updated one. And it's broken down in the chapters, but each chapter has segments inside that further breaks down what you are looking and what you're reading at. So moving on, this is only 2 slides. I'm not gonna really PowerPoint anybody to death. But okay, come on, there we go. So the chapters by overview, the introduction kind of highlights a lot of lessons learned and direction you need to go as a new manager or manager of people. It doesn't really break down exactly where or how, but it gives you some content on what's to follow in the following chapters and into the rest of the book. It kind of lays it out really good on what to expect. Chapter 1 is very critical. It identifies old habits and how to break from them. Stuff that we may not even know ourselves that we're doing until you read the book and you stop yourself and go, wow, okay, so that's what I was doing, and that's what it looked like to people below you and above you. So it kind of gives you an insight into what really kind of makes you tick and maybe what what off ramp or maybe an on ramp that you needed to get on right away. So it really kind of highlights where you kind of misstepped. And I put in these chapters, I don't have all of them in here, but I got the most critical ones. There's some that I leave out because it has data points or anything like that. And I don't want to take away all the good parts of the book, but I like I said, I kind of highlighted the real most important ones, like chapter 1 and 2. And then chapter 2 identifies how to accelerate your learning, how to find out more about the business, how to find out more about the company, what you should be doing prior to setting foot into that building. If I would have known this, I would have taken an extra week to go and get in General Mills and done a lot more research on the people that are in the organization, but also I would say the area that I was in. What questions to ask your supervisor, your manager prior to starting. And I would say the next critical ones are chapter 4 and 5. Chapter 5 is very important because it helps you to avoid some common traps that you get into. It kind of takes away the thinking that you have, that you kind of know, you already know what you're walking into, but you really don't. So it's kind of getting you in, starting to end that first 30 days right around in there, maybe starting the next 30, and where your pitfalls are, where are your blind spots, who should you be talking to, questions you should be asking. A lot of it's research around the organization itself. This is, again, another chapter that identifies how to secure the early wins and how important they are. And that's where the back half of this chapter goes. What does an early win look like? How to work with your boss, how to make sure that they are identifying the early wins that you're after, kind of laying out some groundwork on what you need to be doing and what you should not, well, need to be doing, but also what could be harmful as well. Again, focusing on your blind spots. And it's like I said, reading this book really highlighted what I'm going to have to read it again whenever I started a new organization. I'm going to have to read it probably again, at least the first 5 chapters, because that's where it really gets you into learning from your mistakes and realizing when you're about to make them, when you're about to step on the bear trap for the second time after you've already climbed out of it once. And then how to get momentum, how to get those early wins, how to get the low-hanging fruit. That's what I found most valuable. I think chapters 4 and 5 are probably the most critical in this book. And then, like I said, I could go into a little bit about chapter 4. It's just about negotiating success. Where you and your boss need to align, and how do you get there? What do you need from them on how to get to where you're trying to secure those early wins, the low-hanging fruit, the ones that you don't really necessarily have to work hard for, but are already there. So then we start to dive into chapters 7 through 9. And these are another a set of 3 chapters that are identifying how you build your team and how you build yourself. And the importance of not only building your team, and I wouldn't say that's probably the most critical of these, but chapter 7, that is, but chapter 9 really ensures on how you're managing yourself. And we also focus on the people around us or our direct reports and maybe your boss, but you are probably the biggest cog in that wheel. If your life is in disarray, you're probably going to be in disarray yourself at least at the job. I don't have a wife and kids, but reading this, you could, when the real life example they give, you can read and you can actually feel the frustration just from the guy itself that was changing the job and how he had to move his family from New York City to Toronto, staying within the organization, and just all the nuances that go in. And as military members, that's called change of duty station. So a PCSing or whatnot. So we are already have that built in, or preparing for a deployment and stuff like that. We already have the nuts and bolts on how to manage ourselves, but sometimes you just need to have that little angel on your shoulder telling you that you're following down the wrong path, and you really need to refocus and re-energize towards your people around you. And then chapter 8 is really about creating alliances. And this is another chapter that I don't have it here, but it's a very important one. And it talks about, if you know the vertical and the horizontal picture that you have. Vertical is you kind of going up and down or going up the ladder towards your boss and your boss's boss and trying to please them and trying to make sure that they're happy. But the more important part is the horizontal one. That's the alliances and the relationships you're building across the people that are your peers and maybe a level below you or whatnot. I looked at it as the horizontal is your foundation. That's probably what you really need to focus on more in that first probably 60 days, is building those friendships and building those relationships, and who's responsible for what, who has impact on your day, who knows who in the other in that arena, and then who has a lot of political clout. Looking back again at General Mills for myself, I didn't probably pay enough attention to the horizontal one, and it caused me a lot of pain. What I saw and what I did, I would go back and change it even quicker. So focusing on that and building that horizontal framework will not only give you a good foundation, but it's going to strengthen that vertical one too, because all those people are going to eventually get back to your boss. And I had a very engaged boss. She talked to everybody. So if I made a mistake, it was known quickly. And that's where, like you said, I didn't focus on that horizontal one as much as I should have. And it showed it really hurt. So looking back on it now, it's like I really should have focused on those. And then chapter 10 is about accelerating everybody. Basically, you've arrived, you got it through your first 90 days. How do we make everybody successful? And I think if you negotiate that first 90 days, that'll make that last chapter there go even quicker. It's about building your alliances, finding out about the business and how business is done. And that's what I have come to realize with this book. Like I said, it was very sobering, especially in those early chapters about, whoa, wow, no, there's where I really stepped in it, or that's where I derailed. And it was boom, 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 and it was blatant. It was almost like this guy was reading my bio from the last last jobs I had. It's like, oh, jeepers, wow. So it must happen quite a bit. And anybody, and even in an entry level position, can use this and read this and gain perspective, because you're going to need all those relationships across, build your alliances, and how to negotiate with your boss about what you're after and how to gain success. Anybody at any level could use this. And like I said, it's a very easy read. There's like I said, chapter 3 can kind of get, and chapter 6 can, I don't really know. This really doesn't apply to me. There are things that do, but it was kind of for higher level things or higher level people. But it does lay out a structure, and it does provide a lot of detail in there for that. And then my last diagram here that I'll PowerPoint again, but it's just a 30, 60, 90 that I came up with on my own that I've actually used for when I was at General Mills, what I was going to do when I first got in there. And the hard part for me, again, is I didn't revert back and look at this plan. So when I went through and I've made different adjustments, and I'll make them again for wherever I start into another field, into another company or organization. But know that this is a living, breathing document. You can go in there and tailor it to the position that you're in, and tailor it to the boss that you have. So basically, do research. After you get that job and after you've accepted it, I think the most important part is taking that extra time and getting to know the organization and the people you're going to be working with, asking lots and lots of questions. That's what I can say. And I really messed up on this here. Darn. So that's what that's all I got to say. That's my presentation. I don't want to, I think I spent about almost 15 minutes. So you can put in questions if you have any. Like I said, I found it on Amazon, just Googled it, boom, got it here within a couple of weeks. Or I would say a week and a half.
Questions? Open discussion?
Hey, this is Jeff, not
Hey.
a question, but a comment. I've read this book quite some time ago. I would actually recommend reading this before you land a particular position. I've had this question asked of me before during job interviews, what I would do and what I would plan to do, say the first 30 days, 60 days. So it might be good to have an idea in case that question comes up in an interview.
Hello?
Absolutely. I agree.
Hello?
I'm going to have to, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
hello.
Jeff?
Hey,
I'm in
Jeff,
the office. It was ringing, so I
Jeff,
figured I'd
can you
grab it.
mute? Thanks. So what questions do people have?
I had a quick question. So what did you find as the biggest barrier when you were working during your first 90 days?
In my first 90 days or reading this book, it was identifying what I probably, it kind of highlighted what I focused on instead of what should have been focused on. And that's a lot of building the relationships and finding out a lot about the building itself, where you're working. The political structure, especially if you're in any kind of management position, just how delicate it can be. And it really hit home where I kind of probably didn't spend enough time, and that is getting to know some of my peers and getting to know how business is done. When you're in, like you said, when you're in the military, you're in the service, it takes you a while to learn how to build that business is done. But this Mr. Watkins kind of identifies what to look for and how to look for it. It's like I said, it's sobering when you're reading it and you're going, holy cow, wow, that makes a lot of sense. But they really kind of focus on the horizontal and vertical relationships. I have a mentor that I've been talking to for 5 years, and we were sitting one day in February and talking about our experiences. And I said, well, the last place I was at, I didn't focus enough on the horizontal relationship building as much as I should have. And he goes, well, I didn't focus enough on the vertical. So we were one of the other. So we could identify where, you kind of went wrong.
I can suggest too, for those of you that know George Murray, he wrote this book, Hired, and he's got a section in there on a 90-day plan too. That's probably similar to maybe what Tony read in this book. And if you're interested in talking about that or going through an outline, I've got that I prepared from reading George's book too.
And if you walk in and you hand them your 3069, what your intent is, and remind them it's very generic. If you don't, if you're going into an interview or whatnot, but they're going to be impressed that you even have one. At least if you're at the executive level, you're going to be expected to have one. But and then doing a little bit of research on the organization and plugging some of that stuff in. I know when I went and interviewed at General Mills, they had never had anybody hand them a 306090. And like I said, I identified that it's very generic, but this is what my intent is to do. And a lot of it is a lot of the information gathering, learning. I probably strayed away from it after the first 2 weeks because you're now into the fire and you're getting questions left and right. So you have to somehow figure out and how to not focus on the little fires, but focus on the bigger ones.
Mhm.
Question for you, Tony.
Yeah.
Did you go backwards and, once you got out maybe 30, 60, 90 days and looked backwards and said, hey, yeah, I feel like I strayed from it, but did you actually do it? Like without thinking about it?
Some of it, yes.
Yeah.
Not all of it.
Okay. Because I think one of the things that we can appreciate is when you write it down and you take action, you think about it. You don't always have to be so strict about looking at the document and did I do this, did I do that? I think just doing the plan and getting it in your head helps you take action. And so I just was curious if you actually did accomplish most of it. I mean, you wouldn't expect to accomplish all of it anyway, right? So you probably, if you got large of it, that your value was built by just doing the work.
Yes, and that's where you need to really sit down at the very beginning and sitting down with your boss, because she or he is going to have a 30-60, they should have a 30-60-90 of them, themselves for you.
Mhm,
And then working on comparing those two that you have.
mhm.
I will say full disclosure, my boss didn't give me one that I'm even aware of. So when she had me put them together for my new hires, it was like, okay, well, she goes, well, use yours. And I said, did you ever give me one? And she kind of stopped and she's, well, I don't really remember. Well, yeah, because you didn't. But as a supervisor and my boss, we should have sat down. I should have probably grabbed her and said, okay, so what do I need? What do we need to accomplish?
Yeah,
And that's personal accountability. That's
yeah, just bring your own. If they
bring
don't
your
have one,
own,
bring
but
your
then
own.
ask her for one too, or him or her for
Or-
one.
Or validate yours, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be two, just one, just to make it happen. Yeah. That's great. Sorry it was late. Sounds like an interesting book that you read.
It's very easy. It doesn't cost a lot. I found it on Amazon. I think I got it for under $20 couple of months ago.
Do you feel like it would work also for contract work or consulting work, or is it more towards the employment side?
It's probably more towards the employment side. It doesn't mean that you couldn't apply principles in there
Sure.
as a contractor or for contract work,
Okay.
because you will have a boss either way.
Yeah. Yeah, either way.
You're going to have a boss at with the contractor and then with the company that you're working with.
Mhm.
As much as I know about contracting.
I might also jump in and say, whether or not the book relates, I haven't read it myself, but it's the actions, especially the 30-60-90 plan, right? Those are more important as a contractor, because this has just been my personal experiences and perceptions, is it seems like it's easier to let contractors go than employees
Oh yeah.
for managers, right? And so therefore it's like, well, today I don't need an excuse. Bye. Like,
Yeah, there is that, and I'm a contractor and I have been for 5+ years, and in my past before. The hard part that to let a contractor go means I'm not going to get work done to a manager, and I can't just replace them readily. Now, I'm certainly not replacing them with an employee. That's probably why they're contractor, based. So there's that. Easy if there's nothing to do, because then you don't need them.
Anybody
We'll
else?
stop the recording now.